What is going on, everybody? I wanted to shoot over a video here today talking about the four different types of leverage that not just a cold calling agency can have, but just almost any agency or just any business. Obviously, in my case, I focus on and I run a full time cold calling agency, so it only makes sense. I was inspired by Naval Ravi Kant or I shouldn't say it the other way, it sounds bad. You'll see his framework, and if you've seen it around, Hermosi's talked about it a ton, and it's just a great way to think about things. And as I continue to just scale my agency and grow it, I'm thinking through the lens of these four areas. So I'm going to go through each of them. This probably is going to go on YouTube, so might be longer than 15 minutes, honestly. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, after the 15-minute mark, jump over to YouTube or just jump to YouTube in general. Like, subscribe, and let's get into it. The first part, what is leverage in this context, at least? Let me go back real quick. In this context, if you've actually, I should start with this great quote because I've heard this from a couple of different folks, and obviously we've all heard some variation of this, right? Give me a lever long enough to and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. That's a really popular saying. And the difference between what you put in and what you get out is essentially the leverage. So the four types are code, capital, media, and labor in no particular order. What this looks like in practice, though, for me in my case, I believe my two biggest ones, actually, this is tough because if I had to actually ask myself, where do I think I have the one to two biggest leverage points? It's tough to say between media, labor, and code. Capital, because this is not a capital intensive business. You need some money, obviously, like maybe a couple grand a month or something. And not even that, honestly. I'm on the high end just because I like to spend money on the business. At least I'm a cheap bastard when it comes to everything else, or I should say frugal and prudent with my money. But it's tough to say between those three things, honestly, because they're all just so important. But let's go through code. So code in this context can just mean tech or AI or whatever, or software. So for me, my biggest advantage, I just committed to an annual contract with both FrontSpin and Titan X. That's actually part of capital if you think about it. There's a lot of guys who can't afford Titan X or FrontSpin because of the annual commitment and the minimum spend you need as well on top of that. So that barricades people. And this is the stuff I love. Oh yeah, actually, guys, I just realized this is gonna be a good video. I'm really feeling it because I know I'm gonna go on a good rant here. Obviously, I'm gonna make sure it's valuable for you guys, but I really just love talking about this stuff. I feel like that's my biggest advantage because a lot of the guys that I know, like I was talking to a buddy of mine, where's he at? So he's in South Africa, not South Africa, sorry, South America, and he runs his agency out of there. He's originally from the US, but he runs his agency, cold calling agency, and he focuses, I should say his niche. He focuses on a particular niche, which is really smart, and he's doing good. He's doing between 20 and 30K a month, but he can't afford to commit to the annual spend of a Titan X or a front spin, or even like an Orem or Nooks or something like that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't use Trellis. I was a long time user of Trellis, but I am actually going to be getting off of it. I've just been having a lot of difficulties. Genki and them are incredible, but with where I'm going and the level of support and detail and expertise that I need, I can't afford to fuck around if I'm being candid. So with the code piece, those are my two biggest advantages. Then there's also the data, right? Because here's another thing. I have a ZoomInfo subscription as well as an Upsell subscription, right? Most people can't afford to do that, right? They'll start using Wizza. God forbid you're on Wizza. They'll start using Blitz API or Lead Magic. And look, you can make a case that all of these tools to some extent are the same. They're recycling leads, all that stuff, which a lot of the time it is true. I'm not going to lie. But I know what I've seen and what works for me, right? So that code piece, that's the biggest part. And then also I have Salesforce. I have a Salesforce CRM, also a couple other tools, Cloud Code, Gemini, any of the subscriptions that I need. I spare no expenses when it comes to this stuff. Zapier and N8N, those workflows are still great for me. I'm trying to think what other forms but you guys get the point. Like that's going to be the differentiation because with the nature of what I do, it's almost like staffing because the reason I can stack up the amount of contracts that I do for both me and my team of callers, and there's like a lot of us, the reason I can do that is we control not just the output, but more importantly, what's the input. Let's take two SDRs or calling agencies. You have I'm just going to say their name, but let's say you go with, God forbid, Memory Blue or freaking things like Up Level Leads or Level Up Leads. I know plenty of people who went through all those services. It's no competition. You know what they're, let me tell you what Level Up Leads does. Basically, they're going to tell a client, hey, we'll make you $300 a day or something like that. They'll charge like 6 grand for that a month. They churn through clients. And the reason they churn is they don't have a really good system and process. Because the guys who build lists, Jesus Christ, if you saw their list building, oh, it's another one. Clay, obviously, is my favorite. Not as much these days, I will be honest. I've been finding great alternatives. I know some of you might be like surprised by that because I'm a big Clay guy. But, and it's not because of the cost and stuff. Like, guys, one thing about me, if I can't get a minimum of 10x ROI on a tool, I will not spend my own money on it. So I've always gotten a minimum of 10x ROI on Clay, right? So I'm spending like $800. Do the math, right? Going back to Level Up Leads, let's say you work with a company like that, under the code function, their list building is dog shit. They have awful connect rates, less than 5%. Let's just be generous. Let's say 8%. Still pretty bad, in my opinion. 8%. They, on top of that, have a workforce, which we'll get into the labor part, the workforce that I've known of people who used to work there before, and usual stuff you hear about these high churn and burn agencies and sales floors, which I know I work in sales, but I'm the furthest thing from a salesman or like that scummy culture. Not saying I shouldn't call them scummy. I'm not saying that, but like the general type of sales environment that unfortunately is around on the internet and just in the real world, anyways. But let's say you have somebody like that who has a 8% connect rate, and we're being extremely generous. They have to make $300-$400 a day. Let's think about the market TAM too. By the way, this is not a cold email agency where I know cold email agencies where they won't work with someone unless there's like a minimum of 50,000 people that they can contact or 100,000. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like I don't need that many. I need maybe a couple thousand at most, right? For the duration. Because usually people will stay with me for about 4 to 6 months on average. There'll be some people who've been together for, I don't know, 8-9 months or longer. But yeah, let's just take Level Up Leads, 8% connect rate. You have a full-time SDR that you're paying, right? It's dialing for 6-7 hours across multiple clients. And on top of that too, you have the, what do you call it? I forgot exactly the dialer they use. I don't know if it's Orm or Nooks or whichever. You have the dialer, which becomes a problem, the data, the list building, all those things I mentioned. How many conversations do you think they're going to get per day? I don't have my thing on me, or actually I do have my phone on me. So let's just say you have, let me look here, 200 a day. And again, we're being generous. So they have 16 conversations a day on the 200. Now that's 200 across the board with all clients, I'm sure. Or let's just say it's for one client. Great. 16. Now you got to factor in, again, I know this because I talk to people there. Of the 16 you connect with, because they use poor data, what percentage of people are actually the targets that you're trying to reach out to? How many of them switch jobs because they're not tracking that? If someone's not tracking that, they're probably not they as in Level Up Leads now. I'm just talking generally speaking. Probably using seamless data, cheap as shit, right? And what you pay for is what you get kind of thing. So you have that. Now contrast that with what I do. With me and or my callers, regardless right now, let's just say it's me. I optimize to basically do an hour a day roughly of calling or the equivalent of that because my whole thing is I can get more conversations complete. And the conversation to me is not, oh, hey, hello, someone picks up the phone. It's hello, I do my opener. I say, yeah, this is Elijah giving you a call from HTC Consulting. Look, I know I'm an interruption here, but I had a relevant reason for reaching out. Can I grab half a minute to share the purpose of the call? Sure, go ahead. And then we have a conversation, and the conversation ends in either, let's take a meeting. I'm interested, but send me some more information. I'm not interested with a documented reason. Not now, meaning I'm interested, but let's maybe talk in a month or 3 months because we're using an agency right now. Call me back. Not me, meaning it's the wrong target. Right job title, but the wrong function. And what I mean by that, if anyone doesn't know, let's say you target a sales leader, but they don't actually oversee the enterprise team. They only oversee SMB, right? Now you know. And it can also you can also have an outcome of a referred. So those are the usual outcomes I'm looking for. So imagine those are real conversations. I'm getting usually on average 4 to 6 an hour per day. That doesn't make sense. 4 to 6 an hour. Now you contrast that with an SDR who's dialing for. Now most SDRs don't actually work for like 4, 5, 6, 8 hours, right? Because they got BS meetings, they got to do a bunch of admin, 2-3 hours of admin, and then maybe for 2 hours, 3 hours they're working. And in that block, they're not productive. So I have the ability to have the output, right, of a full-time SDR in 1 hour. Now there are some campaigns where I can put 2 hours, but I don't need to because clients don't track my hours. They care about the outcome, and that's what I sell. So and the reason I can have these is because upstream I have the right dialer that doesn't make me go into spam, right? That's auto rotating. I'm basically being taken care of with FrontSpin taking care of me because they have such a great infrastructure. I have Titan X that's scoring the numbers and validating the numbers. I have all the subscriptions I mentioned for the best phone numbers, right? I have Clay for accurate list building, right? And other tools as well that support it and complement it to make sure it's, now again, there's no perfect list, but I'm not going to get a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, I switch jobs, right? Doesn't happen too often to me. So all those things work in my favor. Now that's just the code, right? There's way more things that go into this, but moving on to now the capital piece of this. Capital can look like a couple different things in a traditional business. Let's just say, I don't know, construction, or you have a moving company or a cleaning company or some form of service, or even a software company. Capital is pretty straightforward. In my case, I don't need that much capital up front, but it does help that I can basically, again, like I mentioned at the top of the call, I can commit to an annual contract with FrontSpin and Titan X and ZoomInfo and all these other tools, right? That makes my life a lot easier. And there's also an element of this that it doesn't really fall under this bucket, but I'm going to throw it in as my own 2 cents on this, which is when you have capital sitting in the bank. I mentioned, if you guys know my story, or if this is like your first time watching me or hearing this part of the story, last year, March is basically when I went full time with my business. And the only reason, one of the main reasons I was able to make the jump was because of the fact that I had almost 3 years worth of expenses saved up. So that's a form of capital that gives me the ability to think freely. And I'm always on the offensive. Whereas most people, to me, this is risky. They'll save up 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of expenses, depending on your income and how much you're spending per month. I spend very little relative to what I make. And thank God my agency spits out pretty good cash flow, so I don't have to worry too much on any of the expenses that I have to watch out for. So basically, a form of having capital in the bank is extremely advantageous, at least to me, because I can also afford not to take on clients. Because if you take on poor clients, and I've learned from experience, that impacts other areas of the business, and it also impacts the other three boxes here. So that's like how I'm thinking through with capital. And capital I can also put it towards paid ads. I can hire, like, here's another form of capital, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Not a form of capital, excuse me, a form of, I should say not a form, but a use case for capital. About a month ago now, I hired a VA. And that VA, the ROI I get on that individual is incredible, because I pay $6 an hour, something like that. And they're doing a lot of the human in the loop work that I need. Obviously, if you guys know me, I use a whole ton of AI and automation, but there's still certain elements of the business and just life that, like, AI is just not ready for. And you need a second pair of eyes. And thank God too, he's very AI native, relatively speaking at least, very AI native. And he's also very open to learning, which makes my life a lot easier. So that's another form of that. Another form of this too is I'm potentially going to be looking to have somebody either coach me. So I'm either going to buy a done do it yourself like LinkedIn outbound program, or I'm going to buy a done for you LinkedIn outbound service, because I'm strapped on my time right now. Relatively speaking, I can always make time, but I'm strapped, and my time is better put towards upselling, expanding, and serving clients, right? Not so much net new, but I still need net new coming in, because I get, and this goes back to me, this is going to go into media, but I usually get about 2 to 5 inbounds. As of me recording this right now, it's actually Saturday, pretty much like 11 o'clock at night. But literally just today on a Saturday, I got 2 inbound leads that came in. One I had to DQ because price just doesn't work for them. But you see, that's another, that goes back to capital. Because of the free cash flow that I have generating from the agency, right? Because of all the right things I've done, I have the code that allows me to get the outcomes, that lets me charge more, and I then can charge more, and then I can post about it and go on media tours. And I say media tour, but it's all these things that just work together, and it's just incredible. I love thinking about this, talking about this, because I've experienced it firsthand. But going back to what I was saying about the inbound, so one of them today, he's a qualified one, so I have him for next week. And I don't know how exactly he found me. I have to go take a call with him. I'll ask him how he found me exactly. And also, this is an interesting thing. On Friday, I had a call with this guy in the commercial insurance space. And he found me because a guy I just closed recently, maybe like a couple of weeks ago, on cold calling, done for you cold calling for the commercial insurance space as well. I signed him up. He hasn't even started yet, but he made a video about us, like my agency, and he said like really good things. He didn't mention us in particular, but I didn't know he's like a celebrity in the insurance agency world, in his like little pocket niche. And when people heard that he was outsourcing his cold calling, they were like, wow, like the cold calling king is outsourcing his stuff. And this one guy reached out to him and said, hey, who are you going with? And he pointed him to me, and I was like, wow, thank you. And he was impressed with our sales process, right? Which he told me he's worked with other people. And again, if you know me and you've watched my videos, you always hear me say there's no competition out there at all, because everybody's unprofessional. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. It is a trend right now to go just fractional, right? Everyone hates their job. Everyone doesn't want to work for a, what do you call it, a W-2 SDR SaaS company because they're all bullshit. Fair enough. But it creates a big wave of people who don't know exactly what they're doing. You've been an SDR for 2 minutes and now you're talking about, now there are some people who can say the same thing about me, right? I don't have a 6 year career in SaaS, but put me in a room, people know I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm getting off topic though. Going back to this, inbound is a good thing. I get a lot of that, but there's no predictability. So I need to get my outbound going. And I believe that I'm underutilizing my LinkedIn because LinkedIn is a form of media, right? And code because it falls under the code bucket and the media bucket because I do a lot of inbound and posting and all that stuff. Or excuse me, I get a lot of inbound because I post a lot and I also optimize for channel partners. But I can be doing more with my LinkedIn profile from the point of view of outbound. Because obviously I can call to sell my calling services, but calling is still time intensive. And I just don't have that much time to spare throughout the day, at least for now. That's the bucket for capital. Now, my favorite category, not the one that I believe I have the most leverage, but my favorite one is media. And media is by far the best one because we've all heard that saying, I can record this once. I've recorded a podcast once and I get 100 views, 20 views, 1,000 views, whatever the number, or even the cumulative amount of impressions and views and stuff I can get from all the content that I post. I want to say maybe a couple of months ago, I started really committing. I never have to even commit to posting once a day. It just happened because you guys don't understand, I have so much backlog of content that I want to post because I have so much to say. I'm experiencing so much of the world of running my business that like I'm seeing so many different things that you guys are not seeing and I want to share it. And there's different buckets of the kind of content I make, right? Like on purpose, or I should say intentionally, I make posts around thought leadership, right? So this is where I think the world's going, or this specific category, etc. There are posts that I can make that showcase my skills without having to be promotional in a way, which is posting my cold calls, posting play tables I make or workflows and stuff like that. And there's different buckets. So media is just like a great one because I'm experiencing the benefits of it. I can't describe to you guys the amount of people. I talked about this in another video. I had a deal on, when was this? Wednesday? Yeah, I think Wednesday. Sorry, not a deal, a discovery call. This is a guy, he's been following me for, I don't know, 6, 7 months. And he works at a company now and he's basically the head of growth. And he came to me and he was like, hey man, I've been following you for some time. We've already chatted here and there, him just saying, hey, keep up the great work. And then we hopped on a call formally and he was like, look, I'm talking to 2 other people, but you're at the top of my list just because I've been following you for 6 months. So I'm like, oh, okay. Right. So we didn't have to do anything because he knows me. He understands how I think and he really likes it. So it's like I'm experiencing the benefit of that. That's why I always like chuckle and laugh whenever I hear certain people. I shouldn't say content is going to apply to every single person. And there's different forms of channels that work for certain people. Like LinkedIn is not going to work if you're trying to sell to construction people, I assume, right? Like generically speaking, or maintenance guys. But if you're selling to people like, obviously like salespeople and marketers, we're all on there. It makes sense. Engineers, makes sense. So you got to go obviously where your audience lives, but there are people, even if their audience lives in a certain place, they still won't do it. They're like, oh, it's cringy. Or I'd rather be, this is my favorite one, when someone says, I want to be the low-key guy that nobody knows, but everybody knows, or some bullshit like that. I'm like, you're so stupid. Now, if you're happy with where you're at in terms of whoever's watching this and you believe that, and you're happy with where you're at in terms of income, and it's really all about income for the most part of why we do this stuff, if you're happy, all good. But and we all want more business and we want more high quality business. That's the important thing with media is I'm educated. Like even when I'm talking right now, you watching this, you might be a potential referral, a client, one of my callers, someone I might work with, a vendor, who knows? You get to see and understand how I think, and you might not like it. You might say, you know what, Elijah, I got to watch a bit of you. You're not for me in whatever shape or form. Vendor, referral partner, client, etc. Totally fine, right? But we do this. I forgot that saying, but like you post to like find your tribe or whatever, right? So I'm a big believer in trying to go to my audience and attracting them to come to me. So that's why the media part is so huge. And I always say jokingly, right? I sell cold calling services, but I've never had to really. It's been a long time, guys, since I had to like cold call for my own business because not only does media help, obviously optimizing and simplifying a process to have referrals. Referrals and channel partners is unbelievable. Those 2 channels, for me at least, incredible. The next bucket of this is labor. So this one, in my case, is pretty obvious. It's just the labor of selling time, or my callers will send me their time, right? And I exchange that for dollars, and then they go deliver our client an outcome that they want, which is usually meetings and specifically qualified, held meetings that also ideally turn into revenue. And the way also, here's another important thing too, in terms of like how I sell, right? I sell under 3 buckets. When I'm selling myself, It's typically aligning to, first of all, like if it's a CEO, CMO, CRO, head of sales, head of growth, etc. Obviously, I tailor in different ways. I highly recommend you guys follow and watch and absolutely digest, Eric Shaver's material. He is, I can't describe it. I don't know how to describe Eric. He's a goat of goats, in my opinion. Best sales trainer out there who's not a sales trainer. He's been coaching me, I don't know for how long. Eric, if you're watching this, comment or something. I don't know how long you've been coaching me, but he's the one who really helped me understand and think through the lens of the different personas I sell to. Because when I'm selling, going back to my 3 points, I'm selling revenue incrementality, revenue profitability, and revenue velocity. What do those things mean? Revenue incrementality means if you are relying on, let's say you're the CRO, you're relying on channel partners and or referrals, word of mouth, expansion, upsells, etc. I'm now creating a whole new category, outbound, that you have not ever used. Maybe you've tried, it hasn't worked. I'm opening a new door for you to get new business. So it's incremental to whatever you already, it just, that is probably, I don't want to say majority, it's about 40% of the time when I'm selling, it's that. Because of the types of the markets I go after, most people have given up on outbound. They just don't think it works, which is totally fine, right? It helps my case. It does make it a little harder because you're pushing a rock or like a boulder up a hill kind of thing, which is fine if you know what you're doing. So that's one version. The other version is revenue profitability. What does that mean? Right now, they're getting a bunch of MQLs or leads that convert to revenue, but the LTV to CAC, so lifetime value to cost per acquisition, it just doesn't make sense, right? It's not a wide enough gap between the CAC to LTV for it to really justify itself. Again, that's one of the reasons too. Like outbound's LTV to CAC relative to, let's say, paid ads or potentially, depending on what you sell, channel partners and referrals and events, it's not really going to stand up. Just calling it for what it is. But there are certain industries, and the ones I target, outbound works the best because it's the cheapest, but you can still maybe plus or minus 5%. It's a little bit less in terms of conversion to other channels, but the spend is so much less. So I'm selling the profitability. You're basically paying right now 10 grand to make 100 grand. I can basically come in and say, hey, you can pay me, not that I do it this way. You'll basically working with me. You'll be, let me back up. The cost of acquisition is going to be $2,000 to make $100,000. So that $8,000 spread is where I'm selling myself. And that $8,000, when you times it by multiple deal units, right, the ROI is just there. Now, I'm not saying you can solely just sell on ROI, right? Obviously, if that was the case, anyone can just go to anybody and just say, oh, yeah, our clients got 100 to 1 ratio ROI in 90 days for some BS and come sign up with us. It doesn't work that way. That's one big core element of it, right? There is the ROI. You do have to talk to the bottom line. So that's one thing I wanted to say. So those are 2 points. The last one is the revenue velocity, right? Now, it might take you 6 months to close a deal. You work with me, you can close a deal in 3 months. How can we do that? Going back to code. We have the greatest tools. We can go to the market quicker, right? We can get feedback faster and then iterate the script. We can target the best people, have more conversations. And because of the fact that we have great labor, meaning great callers, because I'm not paying some guys in India or the Philippines or Mexico, no disrespect to those regions at all. But I'm not, generally speaking, right? That's what most people think is you're outsourcing it to one of those countries or some other country and you're paying a caller $1,000 or something. I don't work like that. I hire senior North American callers who worked at Snowflake, Salesforce, other startups that some of us will know, or not startups, excuse me, but known brand names. And some of them work full-time with me, others are part-time. But the idea is these guys are skilled people. So you have all these things working with you, the greatest, latest tools. You have great callers, you have a great market and a great client. Things happen. So that's how I'm thinking through that. And then there's also delegation for me, right? Because this is the other form of leverage for me. Instead of spending an hour of my time to make $200, right? I can go sell that time and slot somebody else in to go call for an hour, pay him $200. I can go send more LinkedIn DMs, follow with some old leads, go make content, go make cold calls. I can go make $2,000 for the hour, right? So it's a 10x spread for me. So that's the way I'm thinking about these things. And that's not to say I don't call. Like I still call. I will forever be calling. I love calling. It's hard to shut. Like it's still hard to me after doing it 4 or 5 years, 100,000 plus calls in, getting my teeth kicked every day. It's still hard. I still get nervous. But that's another big selling point for me too, by the way, is clients love the fact that I still am willing to roll up my sleeves and make calls. They love that. So there's that. And that's just kind of the way I'm like thinking through it. So this just goes in a little bit more detail of what this actually like looks like. The capital part 2, this is the other part that actually I should have talked about. I can basically, when you deploy money, so you get more out than obviously you put in, that's the whole idea. It sounds so simple, but it's like, why is everyone not doing this? And this goes back to, you got to pick the right vehicle. I'm glad I chose this skill of and I should say this business model of cold calling, because it's profitable. It's super in demand if you know where to look. Obviously, certain industries don't perform as well, or certain industries lend itself to more email, more LinkedIn, or more channel partners, or more paid ads, right? It just is the nature of the beast. So you got to be mindful of that, right? And then it's the other piece I talked about, right? I can be able to eat the paid ads spend, right? If I need to, if I want to fund my top funnel. And the other part too is because I have higher margin, right? I can hire and afford to pay premium callers, right? Because premium pricing obviously attracts better callers and opportunities. And it's just simple that way. And I can go into, if you guys want, I can go into margins, how I think through that, how I try to increase that. Because what's funny, if you guys saw my post, I think a week or two ago when I mentioned, I made a post about I broke February's revenue goal in April, and we hit a new high. When I did that, it was because pricing and all the things I mentioned, like upstream, right? Meaning the tools help me convert better. Because like when you can get better results, you can just charge more because now you have more demand. And I want to have 5 people coming to me. I can just raise the price. 3 say no, 2 say yes. Cool. Those 2 basically cover the cost of what those 3 would have spent anyways individually. So it just helps you so much more. Now there's obviously a limit to how much you can price and stuff, but like I know guys charging 20, 30, $40,000 for the same thing I basically do. And I know I get the same, if not better results to them. And that's what, and some things take time because those guys have been doing this for 5, 10, 15, 20 years anyway. So it makes sense, but that's just another important thing to think through. So yeah, if you want to know how I think through margin and how I increased it, because initially when I made that post, it's actually interesting. I had a 67 gross and a 60% net. It's actually much higher now since I reshuffled some things. So I'm always looking to optimize and whatnot. So it's just so much fun to play around with how can I improve each metric, right? My operating cash flow. That's what I want to be able to keep expanding. In order for me to do that, right, I got to make sure my operating expenses are not out of the, like, FrontSpin Titan X is not cheap is all I'll say, right? But I don't want to go cheap on certain things that I have to expend capital. Thinking through that kind of stuff. And then pricing power, like I basically just said, right? More demand than supply, you can set your price and I don't have to follow theirs. The media, LinkedIn daily, I mentioned podcast, YouTube, 2 to 5 inbounds, case studies as well that'll sell for me. So I don't post. So it's the funny thing. I still don't have a website. That's number one, which is the funniest part. I got to get around to it. I'm just lazy. I don't post like a lot of my clients. Like now, when someone comes to me, rarely do they, because again, they come inbound or through a channel partner or referral. But when someone's cold, like a cold lead or something, asking for a referral, dude, I got, I don't know, 10 of them I can go give tomorrow if I wanted, or like today. So that also helps as well, right? Collecting case studies and just making sure you can also work off that. And then the labor part, right? The callers, the virtual assistant, cleaning a meal prep. That's a big thing, guys. Like personal leverage. I don't want to clean. I always wear black. Like that's a popular thing from Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and those guys. And say what you will about those guys, but I'm a big believer in not expending calories unnecessarily. I'm a big believer in that. So eating the same thing every day, I just prefer that. Every now and then I'll switch it, but like I have the option is a big thing, right? I'm a pretty routine oriented guy. Like I like doing the same thing every day and knowing there's predictability. If you work in sales, we all probably hate surprises because we all have shitty ass forecasts last minute, right? So there's a lot of that. So yeah, like your personal life, getting that in order in terms of buying back your time is huge. And then SOPs and systems, right? Because I was a manager, I really thought a lot in systems and SOPs because when I bring on a new rep, I don't want to have to answer the same thing or do the same thing for 5 more reps or 8 more reps, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the big part. This is like how I'm thinking about this, right? From the point of view of the visuals, right? Is we got the code, we got the capital, we got the media, we got the labor, right? And these are the different areas I can reach into. So I'll basically pause there. I know it's been I've been talking for like 30 minutes. I hope you found this valuable or you learned a thing or two. If you did, please comment below. I'm trying to grow my YouTube to 100 subscribers. I think as of checking this, I'm at 65, 60 or 65, something like that. I got to double check. Comment, hit me up on LinkedIn if you are somebody who you want to do cold calling. I'm basically trying to get a full-time caller. I'm trying to add more full-time callers. I am, as of today, it's Sunday now because it's 12 o'clock at night. But as of May 3rd, I'm not going to be actively hiring right now, but I am forecasting to hire in the next month and a half to maybe 2 months. So hit me up. I basically pay my caller, and I want full-time guys, right? So someone who can dial for like 4, 5, 6 hours a day. I'll pay anywhere between 6 to 8 grand US. You can work remote. You have a lot of freedom. You don't have to work those hours. Those are just the amount of hours generally that need to be worked. But my thing is, like I said in the beginning of the call, or not the call, but beginning of the video, when I was talking about the code part, Titan X, you can basically get 5 to 8 conversations in an hour. And if you're managing 4 clients, you do the math. Let's just say bottom number, 5 conversations per hour. That's what you need. You can basically just have 20 in a day. So if you can do that, you can make things happen. And then if you're also a business looking for cold outbound, we basically focus on the phone, but we also do a little bit of LinkedIn and email, not as much, but we also do a lot of direct mail. So if you're looking for that, reach out via LinkedIn. I'm most responsive on LinkedIn or email. Yeah, we can go from there. If you made it this far, thank you. I always appreciate it whenever someone spends more than 2 minutes watching me. It's always insane to me whenever someone does that. So thank you for your time, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.